Hello, my name is Keyte, and I'm just making a short video about my views on how things are going to progress over the next couple of months, irrespective of whether we get a clean break Brexit or whether Boris gets a deal, or whether we go to a new general election and get a new party voted in, hopefully the Brexit party. That's what I'm rooting for. Um, Irrespective of that, we certainly have a few loose ends to tie up. As a party, the Brexit party. Firstly, we're going to have to facilitate the process of leaving the EU at home here in Britain by arranging technology infrastructure and all the necessary non-governmental or governmental departments to ensure a clean break is viable for across the board, irrespective of what people voted for. There has to be also a lot of arrangements around making policy within the Brexit Party if we're going to stand as a political party to counter Corbyn or Boris. Our policies obviously will revolve mainly around Brexit, but we can bring in a multi framework of policy around Brexit, starting with topical issues such as green issues. We must take these moderately seriously. Obviously, we'll offer different solutions to green issues than other parties will, and there'll be more progressive ones, I think. Certainly not being cowed by the whole extinction rebellion going on and all the ridiculous rant that goes on from the younger generation at the moment around green issues. I think we just have to steadily get on with things, moving towards a greener agenda. Certainly, tidal power, nuclear fusion looks like an opportunity that may not be far off now. And other issues. I heard Nigel Farage on LBC talking about planting trees. I think that's a great idea. Creating carbon sinks, they're called actually, or carbon traps. You plant a huge number of trees and they absorb most of the CO2 in the air. So that's great. I think we've got to move towards that agenda, but not to make ourselves look ridiculous to the rest of the world. Certainly China and India, who have very forward, expansive, fast-growing countries which are developing into something much more industrial and obviously with a green agenda that's written into the whole program. But they're not going to stop burning coal and fossil fuels in the near distant future. And I don't think we should try to enforce that upon the rest of the world with taxes in the way that people are penalized in order to improve the air quality of the world in general. I think certainly we have to look at flight ways of creating a different fuel for planes. Hopefully, this will end up being nuclear fusion, which would be fantastic. But obviously, an aeroplane flying through the air uses up absolutely vast amounts of fuel and is far more polluting than just a few cars or a few coal-fired power stations here on Earth. And not to forget the fact that most of the global warming nowadays, the more sane scientists out there who have decided to look into the phenomena of the sun heating up and solar flares and all that sort of thing, we can actually see that it's far more to do. Global warming is far more induced by the fact the sun is heating up, and some people have actually argued we are still, leaving the last ice age. This shouldn't be forgotten, and alarmism and environmental pressure groups and all that sort of thing. I'm not saying it should be taken with a pinch of salt, and we should certainly adhere to the stipulations put in place. But there are other ways of doing it. I think we should incentivize green behavior rather than discriminate against it by taxing and putting red tape around people who are creating more CO2 emissions than other people or burning more fossil fuels. I don't think it should be. I don't think it's right to put behind developing countries to the bottom shelf just because they are trying to get on with their industry and develop into thriving economies to make this world become a better place. Every civilization on the earth goes through phases of doing things that are bad for them or bad for the planet or bad for the environment or whatever. But ultimately, they realize, everyone comes to the same conclusion that through industry and development, we get to the best result, and we all find a common consensus on what is best for the environment, and we develop technologies that come naturally rather than having to force a pace by taxing people and causing us to regress rather than progress. We have to think of issues such as getting a space program. I mean, it's important we start to think about colonizing other planets in the solar system. This is a big agenda that we must move on to. I think it's regressive to start worrying about polluting the environment when it's going to cause us problems when we're going to try and get off the Earth and populate new areas of the solar system. It's backward looking. However, it needs to be borne in mind and should be incentivized, and that is clearly the best solution to dealing with green issues. Secondly, we move on to the fact that European business. If you bear with me a second, I'll just pause it. Yeah, in terms of dealing with European business, what we have in the current situation is a lot of grassroots initiatives. I'm aware of many people in my neighbourhood in Gloucestershire in the Cotswolds who are great at coming up with pioneering ideas. But because of the European Union, these grassroots initiatives, myself included, never really get off the ground. We always feel like we're being sucked into a system that trades on our future ability to create something that is going to make the planet thrive or make our work escalate to a level that brings about phenomena that can change things rapidly to a more progressive state. So what we have to do is be careful about the way we farm ideas out through media and through technology willy-nilly. I think I talked a little bit about the multipolarization of existing businesses or areas of the world or that sort of thing, to have a more cohesive community based infrastructure with existing laws going through the telecommunications networks and infrastructure that are so now at such a level on the earth that there's no reason not to be interconnected with everyone else. It's just we need to be slightly compartmentalized and have our own issues resolved in our local communities or within each business treated as its own entity. And certain technologies, certainly I'm working on some technologies to do with this, which is creating like digital auras for the individual to use their own technology wherever they interface, wherever they log into, so that their whole digital aura is around them and they're able to access their phenomena and their projects without being interfered with by the state or by other states that are sort of unrelated to the individual country and come from a central system that dictates the way we run our businesses and dictates how much we can actually create on our own to develop oneself. However, it shouldn't be a totally selfish ambition to privatize yourself and to make yourself your own commodity. I've found the best way to progress when developing a grassroots business is to use privilege to enable other systems or other government phenomena or government infrastructure to be developed by lending some of the, I call it bleed technology. So if you start to perspire in a way information or technology or ideas rather than have it actually cut out of you and taken away from your digital aura, What that means is that people are getting the capabilities of what you're offering and able to trial it within the local area or the local communities or other connected polarization within the multipolar network that the grassroots businesses should operate in. What you get then is you start to generate commodities on your own system that are fed back into through the pool of wealth that the grassroots initiatives begin to create and set up. This is a win-win situation. I mean, it doesn't actually cost you anything to bleed off, technology or ideas or privilege from what you're actually creating in your own enterprise. However, when other people develop their ideas, they often see fit to enhance your system in a sort of neighborly approach, where neighbors are in a way separated, but always connected through the proximity that they operate in, be these neighbors the other side of the world or neighbors living in the house next door. So this is all a good thing, and this is another reason why I believe we should come out of the European Union pronto without any, with a clean break, because I think, if we've got an overbearing Big Brother style surveillance system that's capable of cloning ideas as soon as they start to incubate, they never really see the light of day. Things only augment, they never escalate. That's my view of augmentation. When they talk about AI and augmented reality and all that sort of thing, my whole process is cyber-dimensional escalated creation. It's about escalating creation and making it go fast and quick through the processes that if you're driven by your work and you develop things every day, you should never have to wait 20 years to see your project to fruition. You should be able to build on what you're creating as you progress, and things go quicker the more you put into it. So things start to snowball. That's the way things should operate, and this is why I'm so optimistic about Brexit and the future of this country. I think there's so many people that are going to escalate their creation and their talents, so that the grassroots initiatives will take over and create individual corporations in this country that will, however, having already been cloned in the initiatives or the ethos of the idea, sort of borrowed or stolen or mutated somewhere else into an international corporation, that in the existing infrastructure only creates a sort of impression of what this pioneer person was trying to create, who develops grassroots initiatives. When it becomes an actual physical business or operation that's tangible to do business and ultimately bring the pioneer reality to the existing infrastructure in the rest of the world, then the whole thing will go through the roof, and these corporations or industries, technologies will suddenly have a new direction, which will be led by the pioneer of the idea, because obviously the pioneer is seeing the whole thing through from start to finish, which is a massive development program. And it means that ultimately, Britain will have the clout of these grassroots initiatives, and the international corporations will just say, well, bring it on, because something's working for you guys. Let's see what you can make happen from a more global perspective, as you move out into the outer world and do business with these corporations. So that's my view on how business should be operated in this country, from a grassroots, from sort of businesses such as mine that initiate from pioneer ideas and develop as the process escalates. But moving on to the next level, we must talk about things like workers' rights and human rights. I think if the Brexit Party is in power for the next 5 years, we're going to have to look at developing a system that creates for foreign workers certainly and our workers, but in exchange with our workers who go abroad, the foreign workers who come to this country and our workers who go abroad, we should have an equal rights program that ensure they don't get a bad deal when they come and work in this country and don't get less than the minimum wage and all that sort of thing. Likewise, our workers who go and work abroad or who do business with abroad, likewise, people who do business with us from abroad, we should ensure that corporations who come to this country should abide by our laws and stick to ensure that workers' rights are continue to be in existence both home and away for our citizens, because this is about preventing the reality of slavery happening in the workplace and dissatisfaction at work, all that sort of thing. I think we need people to be optimistic. They need to be able to feel they can progress. They need to be able to feel they can come up with tangible ideas that are their own, that are part of their data aura, and they need to be able to feel they're contributing. Which brings me on to my final point. I think we need to have a contribution based system, which, irrespective of whether you're putting time in, whether you're putting money in, whether you're putting commodities in, whether you're putting infrastructure in, you are contributing in some way, shape, or form. It shouldn't just be seen as a system that is run by tax that takes money off people for developing ideas. Some people may be able to develop ideas very cheaply without spending much money on it. How are they going to contribute by tax and be judged by tax? So what I'm suggesting is we should have a very low tax economy that is contribution based. Now, some people may feel this is unfair because the richest people will have to pay the most when they go and see the doctor, or the poorest people will get away scot-free and not have to pay at all when they send their children to school or whatever. However, I believe that if a system is created on a technology that I'm also involved with and trying to develop, which is called Contech, which is contribution technology, what this will do is weigh up the pros and cons of who owes what and how much. It takes many factors into its equation and generates a program whereby the person who contributes the least but has the most wealth should almost not be forced into subsidizing or buying shares in a school or something like that, or buying a department at a hospital or whatever, but should see the benefits of doing so, because obviously in research and science, if you contribute in such a way that you buy a ward in a hospital that is developing research in the vein that your business or operation is working in, then surely that's going to be a win-win situation. You're going to benefit from the commodities, and ultimately, if you have shares in it, it's going to benefit from some of the profit. However, we should look after the poorest and the most vulnerable people in society. And it is vitally important that people who can't contribute because they're financially weak, however, they have put a lot of time in, they've developed systems by colluding with existing businesses or governments and that sort of thing. I'm not saying I do that, but that's partly what I do. I have helped out a lot of people in the local area as well through my technology, because I'm commodities based. I create technology and I get back commodities. I'm very money weak, but I do operate quite successfully in the domain of contributing, primarily because I'm a one-man band. But I'm not just thinking myself, I'm thinking of these grassroots initiatives that are developing. We're beginning to progress and create a system, certainly in the Stroud area and the Gloucestershire area, where people who are not so lucky, maybe they've had mental health issues, maybe they've had stress related issues at work and that sort of thing, they don't feel happy enough to work, but they can give something back to community, whether it be someone going around offering photography for free or whatever. We have a very artisan community in Stroud, and we do a lot of stuff to develop, a community-based, good feeling ambiance in general. And there are not many people I know in Stroud who don't actually give something back to society. However, we do know a lot of them. They need help to get onto the next ladder. And I think this is another way the Brexit Party can facilitate and be seen to be a party who is good for the people as well as for the businessmen and all the other um, processes that have to be put into place to keep the country running.